Making your first $1 million might feel like a distant dream, but it's not magic and it's not reserved for a lucky few. Over the past 11 years, I've worked with hundreds of startup founders, and I've distilled those years of experience into 8 business rules that capture what truly leads success. Whether you're just starting out or trying to scale, if you follow these principles, they will help you reach your first $1 million. Our first 2 rules follow under one critical umbrella, your finance umbrella. The core message for both is you need to master cash. The leading cause of startup failure is straightforward. They run out of cash. According to a CB Insights report, nearly 38% of startups cite this as a reason for failure. And what's even more shocking is that many founders neglect to plan for it until it's too late. And that's why before you think about scaling or aggressive growth, you need a firm grip on your cash flow and your runway. Rule 1, master your cash flow. Think of it as the oxygen your business needs to survive. Even profitable startups can crash if the cash doesn't flow fast enough to cover operating expenses. Lots of founders fixate on revenue growth but fail to monitor cash flow until a payment is overdue, and then panic sets in. The solution is to implement a rolling 13-week cash flow forecast. And this tool gives you a clear week-by-week view of what's coming in and what's going out so that there are no surprises. If you're looking to extend your runway, focus on 2 things: slowing outflows and speeding up inflows. Renegotiate longer payment terms with vendors to delay expenses. For inflows, encourage upfront payments from customers. SaaS companies often offer annual prepaid discounts for this reason. It secures cash flow early and it lowers churn risk. These are the kinds of strategic moves that keep your business running smoothly. The second rule, master your runway. Now, in plain terms, runway answers the question, how many months do I have until we run out of cash? Here's a simple equation to calculate it. Cash in the bank divided by monthly burn rate equals runway. For example, if you have $120,000 in the bank and your monthly burn rate is $20,000, then your runway is 6 months. If your runway isn't at least 6 months, you're taking unnecessary risks. And if it's under 3 months, you're really in the danger zone. And many startups misjudge their burn rate, thinking revenue will ramp up faster than it typically does. But the reality is that most revenue ramps are slower than planned and expenses often increase. The worst mistake you can make is ignoring these numbers. The best move is to get ahead of them. A longer runway gives you breathing room to make smart and strategic decisions instead of scrambling to put out fires. At Forecaster, we recommend starting your fundraising 6 to 12 months before you run out of cash. Mastering cash and runway isn't optional. They're the foundation of everything else. Nail this first and you'll give yourself the stability to focus on scaling and building your vision. Before we get into the third rule, hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. The third rule is to make it a habit to check your financials weekly. I know financial statements can feel like a bit of a chore, but here's the thing. Staying on top of your numbers is one of the best ways to keep your business on track. If you're not checking in on your finances, it's easy for things to slip through the cracks. At the very least, take a look at these 3 reports every week. Your profit and loss or P&L statement. Are you bringing in more than you're spending? Your balance sheet. What assets do you have and what are your liabilities? Your cash flow statement. How's cash moving in and out of the business? It's okay if these feel a little overwhelming at first. Just focus on the basics. The great thing is that founders who track their finances regularly are more equipped to make decisions that keep things running smoothly and avoid surprises later. Now, research shows that businesses that track their numbers are better positioned for growth and success because they can spot issues before they become problems. And this is a source from a Harvard Business Review done in 2022. Think of it like this. You wouldn't drive a car without checking your fuel gauge, right? Your financials are your business's fuel gauge. Even if you're not a numbers person, checking in regularly will help you stay on the road to success. So make it a habit, plan for the future, and you'll thank yourself later. The fourth rule is to embrace good enough because chasing perfection will kill your startup. Perfection is a trap. The graveyard of failed startups is littered with founders who spent too long tweaking, refining, and over-engineering. Meanwhile, somebody else launched a good enough version and captured the market. That's why your focus should be on getting your product into the hands of real users as fast as possible after you validated your idea. The idea of a minimum viable product or MVP exists for a reason. It's more about being functional than it is about being perfect. Build something simple, launch it, and let real customer feedback guide your next steps. Take Amazon as an example. Jeff Bezos didn't launch the everything store overnight. He started with a basic website that sold books, a straightforward MVP. Or look at Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg's first iteration, the Facebook, was just a directory for Harvard students. Neither started as the giant platforms that we know today. They launched, learned, and iterated. Perfection doesn't exist. You'll always find a way to improve, but waiting for everything to be just right will cost you time, money, and market opportunity. Execution beats perfection every time. So launch your product, learn from your users, and make it better with every iteration. The fifth rule is validate before you build, or you might end up wasting a lot of resources. Now, I totally get it. When you have an exciting new idea for a product, it's easy to jump straight into development. You can already picture the success and the impact that it's going to have. But here's the thing. If you haven't taken the time to validate your idea first, there's a good chance you'll end up spending a lot more than you need and risk building something that people don't actually want. A lot of founders make the mistake of assuming their idea is a winner without testing it first. Before you dive in, try to have real conversations with potential customers. I'm talking about genuine feedback, not just sending out a quick survey to a family member. Ask questions like, would you pay for this? Why or why not? And make sure their responses reflect their true interest. If they're not ready to put their money where their mouth is, the feedback is not as useful as it might seem. There's solid research to back this up. For example, a study by the World Bank found that startups that validate demand early have a much higher chance of long-term success. Why? Because validation helps you avoid wasting money on something that might not work. If your idea gets positive feedback, you know it's worth building. If not, you can pivot before things get too costly. Instead of jumping straight into production, try testing the waters first. You can start with a simple landing page, offer pre-orders, or even just manually offer your services to gauge interest. If you can't sell the idea, you probably won't sell the product. So validate first and build second. Rule 6 is automate the repetitive stuff. Your time is too valuable to waste. If you're spending your time on repetitive admin tasks like sending invoices or scheduling meetings or organizing spreadsheets, you're taking time away from what really matters, growing your business. Every hour spent on these tasks is one that you could be using for strategic thinking, innovation, or moving the business forward in ways that actually matter. Founders who automate early are usually the ones who scale the fastest. If you don't, well, you get bogged down with the daily grind, leaving little energy for anything that moves the needle. Here's the rule of thumb. If you're doing something repetitive, it's time to automate it. From emails to scheduling or even payroll and invoicing, there are tools for nearly everything, or you could get a virtual assistant. If your immediate thought is, but that costs money, let's put it into perspective. How much is 10 hours a week of your time worth? If a $20 a month tool can free up that time, it's money well spent. Studies show that businesses that implement automation early in their life cycle have higher productivity and lower operational costs. The reason is because automation eliminates time wasted on repetitive tasks, it helps reduce decision fatigue, and it frees up mental energy for real problem solving. And when you eliminate the small stuff, you create space for big moves. So take a moment to audit your workflow. Write down everything you're doing manually and ask yourself, can this be automated? Should I be the one doing it? If it's not directly driving growth or making money, it's time to get it off your plate. Work smarter, not harder. It's the move. Rule 7, debt isn't bad if you use it the right way. Debt isn't inherently bad. Bad debt is whenever you borrow for things that you don't need and it piles up with high interest. That can lead to disaster. But when you use debt strategically, it can be one of your most powerful tools for scaling your business without giving away equity. Smart debt is debt that generates a return. Taking out a loan to hire a key team member, invest in marketing, or ramp up production that directly drives revenue, that's a calculated move. Now, research from Harvard Business Review and McKinsey has shown that businesses that combine debt with equity financing often see faster growth than those who avoid debt altogether. The key is understanding how to use debt as a tool and not a crutch. So here's the difference. You need to borrow for things that have a clear ROI. Businesses that use debt to grow, whether it's scaling operations, bringing in more revenue, or cutting unnecessary costs, are the ones who see positive returns. Now, let me tell you about a client that I worked with, Jim. Jim was really debt conscious. He couldn't stand credit cards. He had a solid business, good but not great, and what was holding him back was his growth rate. Here's the thing, once Jim landed a client, they stuck around. His monthly churn rate was just 2%, meaning that his client stayed for years. But it took him 3 months to break even on each new client because he relied on paid ads to attract them, and ads can get really expensive. His cash cycle looked like this: spend money on ads to get a customer, wait for 3 months to break even, and then reinvest that cash into more ads. It was a slow cycle, which meant that his growth was stalled. So we introduced him to the concept of using strategic debt to fund his customer acquisition costs. Yes, credit cards. And I know, credit cards are often considered the villain in the finance world, but whenever you use them strategically, they can be a real asset. By borrowing money now to bring in customers who would pay him back quickly, Jim could generate cash flow much faster. And the return from these customers would likely be much higher than any interest rate on the card. And this is what we call interest rate arbitrage. Now, once Jim started using his credit card to fund his paid ads, he didn't have to wait 3 months for cash to come in. He could pay for the ads up front and get the new customers rolling in immediately. And the results? His profits came in faster, which allowed him to acquire even more customers, leading to a dramatic increase in both growth and his overall quality of life. Now, debt is just a tool, so if used the right way, it's going to help you build and scale without selling off equity. But if you don't use it wisely, it can quickly backfire. So make sure that every dollar borrowed is working to fuel your growth and move your business forward. The 8th rule, your network is your shortcut to success. There's an old saying that goes, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know. Now, of course, knowing your stuff is important, but knowing the right people, that is the real key to accelerating your success. A strong network and the right connections can help you land customers, attract investors, and get advice that can save you from making costly mistakes. If you're trying to build your business in isolation, you're making it 10 times harder than it needs to be. But networking isn't about connecting with everyone. It's about connecting with the right people. Now, according to RAP, advice for entrepreneurs and small businesses, entrepreneurs who intentionally build strong industry networks are more likely to secure funding and form successful partnerships. Now, that's because investors and business partners don't just bet on ideas, they bet on people. So don't wait until you're in desperate need of help to start making connections. Start building relationships now, long before you need anything from them. And networking is more than making small talk at events. The power of networking comes whenever you build genuine relationships and offer value to people who challenge you, open doors for you, and help you grow. And some of the best opportunities come from casual conversations and not formal pitches. The startup world is smaller than you think, and the more you get yourself into the right circles, the more lucky breaks you'll start to see. Now, don't be the lone wolf founder who tries to go at it alone. Trust me, the right people will take you further, faster. Those are the 8 essential business rules I've learned from working with startups that will help you hit your first million. Now, if you want to learn how to quickly buy back your time as a founder, click this link to learn my takeaways from Dan Martell's best-selling book, Buy Back Your Time. I'll see you there.